So the current situation, I have just put together a brand spanking new Macfly Atom 80. So now I got a green one and I got a blue one. I put the E-prop on this one. I'm gonna try it out. I've not even put fuel in it yet. I've got the fuel mixed here, but the situation is it's getting dark out here. So I'm gonna go take a short little flight just because it's damn t-shirt weather here in December in North Louisiana. All right, guys, so we got everything squared away from the flight. This is the new Macfly, and I just want to talk to you about a couple of things that first concerned me, but now not so much. Now, I've more or less switched over to this brand. Matt Minyard turned me onto these. My friend David, my student David, he's been flying for almost a year, he's flying with one. There's really nothing not to like. One thing that comes to mind immediately is the netting. I immediately had concerns about the netting, the gaps in the netting here. The real concern I have with the gap here is the throttle cable. Now, the throttle cable will inevitably find its way in here, but Macfly has come up with just a wonderful solution. They take a little bungee strap and they tie the bungee strap onto the harness here, and no matter what you do, you can't make it. I'm trying right now to get the thing in there, and you just can't do it. You can't make the throttle cable go back into the propeller. I mean, short of sticking your hand back there with it, but just that little addition, that little bungee was like a huge thing for me. That when Matt showed me that, I was sold on the units, and I thought, okay, here is the spot that is really important as far as netting goes. This is the spots that your toggles and your trim tapes and stuff can get maybe sucked back into the propeller. So this is where you want the majority of the netting. If you look, that's where the majority of the netting is. It's got a little stylish effect to it. As long as there's no holes here, and the holes here are accounted for by this little bungee, I'm happy with it. It does what it's supposed to do. I've been flying these things for most of the summer. Most of this season, I've been on a few different Macflies. I first got the Atom 80, then I got the 185 on the 150 centimeter hoop. I just got this one in today. So put it together, I've not even fueled it up yet. Now, the company itself seems to be innovative. They've made changes. Every time I get one of these, I've noticed something that they've changed. For example, the little pins and the connections right here. Used to, you didn't have that. These connections would just slide out. Like if you pick the machine up from here, this hoop would want to come loose. You remedied it by picking it up from here or the frame itself. That's one thing. Probably the biggest thing, and something that I've not even tried out yet, is something that they did with the harnesses. Something I did not like about the Soup Air harnesses were the leg straps. The leg straps went across and buckled in closer to here. And what that means is whenever you take a run, that leg strap cuts right across your thigh there. And if you get it tight enough that it's easy to get into the seat, then it's also restricting your running movement. It restricts your stride. It's like your legs are slapping into something. Very distracting for new students. They've done what Dudek Power Seat has done all along. I'm just gonna show you. Over here on my other Macfly unit, I've got a Dudek Power Seat comfort harness. This is my favorite harness on the market. I've not sat in that one yet though, so that one may take the crown. I don't know, we're gonna see. For now, I really like these Dudek Power Seat comforts. And my favorite thing about them is the leg straps clip in very high up. It's got the Cobra buckles. Look at where that clips in, way up there, so that you're clipped in the crease of your leg. Now, if you look at the way these straps are, you know, ignore the loose stuff that's hanging down, but just the leg straps in general, they're hooked in here, so you can get them really, really tight and they don't impede your stride at all. You can still take big steps, be cinched in really tight. The good side of that effect is that when you go to get in the seat, you just raise your legs and you're in your seat. You know, this thing just slips out from under you. Very nice, very comfortable. They really knew what they were doing when they changed the geometry on that. They have changed the geometry on theirs to better reflect what's going on over there with that power seat comfort. Now, if you look, these are buckling in way up here. So yeah, look, that geometry is the geometry that I like, and I'm very curious to get out there and play with this thing. We've got a really good weekend available for flying and ground handling, so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to doing several flights on this machine. Could be a little on the strong side. That's to be determined. We'll play it by ear, just like we always do, and make that decision when the time comes. Overall, I'm very excited to try out this harness and see what it offers in relation to my current favorite, the Dudek Power Seat Comfort. Something else we're gonna do, we're gonna weigh this thing. I've put it together in a ready-to-fly configuration. zero fuel. I've got a scale over here on the ceiling. I want to get this thing centered up so that it's zeroed out when we're looking dead nuts on with it here. We've tared our scale. Now we're gonna take this Macfly and we're gonna hang this dude up on there and we're gonna see just how much it weighs. It feels like nothing. I've had luggage heavier than this. All right, so let's see what we're working with. 46 and a half. Yeah, looks like 46 and a half pounds to me. Fuel mirror, of course, that's no reserve, no tools. That's just the paramotor with an E-prop. Now, the Helix would probably add another few ounces. Not actually weighed the difference between those two. I'm not a real big numbers guy when it comes to like poundage and weighing things and like, oh, it's a pound more. I mean, you know, a pound or two makes a difference if you're talking about, you know, between 90 and 92, right? But when you're talking about 46 and 47, it's not that much of a difference, right? The magnitude is less. Actually, that sounds backwards. But when you start getting heavy, every ounce starts to matter. It all starts to add up. It all starts to become important. Paramotor that is in the 40s, you know, mid 40s here, 46 and a half. That's straight up mid 40s. That's where it's at, guys. That is where it's at. I've not weighed the Maverick with an 80. I'm curious what the actual weight would be on one of those units. So next time I get my hands on one of those, I'll weigh one. Another thing I like better than the Maverick about the Macfly is the swing arms. They've got these simple tubular swing arms, and the tubular swing arms make the adjustment on the hang point angle very adjustable. Simple is better. You don't have any nuts or bolts. I mean, you got one collar that you have to loosen if you want to slide the adjustment, but it's actually hanging on these soft straps, and the soft straps are quite a bit more solid than the metal connections that you would find on, say, a Parajet Maverick. Overall, the shackle is still the same. I think that's the exact same shackle that they use on any of them. Yeah, so we know what it weighs. Let's put some fuel in it and see if we can crank it up on the first pull. Then we're gonna do some warm-up cycles with it. In the dark, of course. So what else we got to do, right? It's warm and beautiful, and we're having a garage sale out here in the yard. So I got to fly. All is right with the world. I got my two McFly Atom 80s hanging in the shop. The rest of the boys is out here in the trailer. Hey, Chop, what's up, man? Are you having a good day? So I've mixed up a couple of gallons of 50-to-1 Sabre and non-ethanol pump gas. Let's go ahead and stain this tank brown, why don't we? This is a waggle siphon. If you've never heard of a waggle siphon, it's got a little marble down in the end there, and the marble keeps the fuel from going out. So if you do that a few times, every time you do that, the fuel goes up the pipe, making sure there's no like dirt or wasp or insects or anything like that down inside of here. Looks relatively clean. This end. There we go. Just like that. All right, first prime. All right, guys, let's see if we can crank it up on the first pull, why don't we? Gotcha. I ain't gonna start it on the rack or on the ground. It ain't bolted in. I'll start it right here on my back though. It's the only way to be safe, okay guys? Remember that. That's what hurts people, starting these things on the ground. So I'm gonna put it on my back and start it up. And let's see if we can do it. Check my surroundings. I'm gonna give it just a priming stroke or two. And then I'm gonna crack the throttle and I'm gonna hit it. Click. Kill switch works. All right, so real quick, to break in an engine, you basically want to run it through some heat cycles. This engine is brand new. I always put a fresh one of these meters on there whenever I go. Look, it still says 0. Is that RPM? It's RPM. Let's change it to time. Yeah, see, it still says 0.0 hours. So a fresh, brand new. I put this thing where I can't see it. It becomes a safety issue whenever I've got it where it's visible. So I just tuck it away under the old harness here. and I can keep track of how much time I got on it. But it's not so much important about the time. I mean, it matters a little bit. What's important is that you get all those parts in there seated. I know Viterazzi puts a special procedure in the manual as far as how to break in an engine, but I'm a machine shop guy. Like, I'm a tool maker. I'm study metallurgy and chemistry and physics for fun. I understand what's going on inside these engines, and I gotta tell you, it don't make a shit if you miss it by a little bit. It also seems foolish to me for the guys that are standing somewhere, like holding themselves against the wall and like counting the seconds that they break in the engine. That just seems silly, man. I go get over here on the hang station and I kick back in my easy chair and I go through some throttle exercises in and out of the seat. I'm gonna check this harness comfort out over here at the hang station. That's how you do it. That's how you should do it anyway. I mean, I'm not gonna look at a clock or anything. I'm just gonna rev it and run it, and you wanna be gentle with it at first. You just don't wanna run it steady for long periods of time, either at high or idle or low. You wanna run the engine through some motions. You wanna generate some heat. Let those parts seat with each other. I mixed up those 2 gallons of 50-to-1 fuel, and I'm gonna run those through there. When those are run through there, the machine will basically be broke in at that point. After 5 to 6 heat cycles, I'll start doing some flights on it. And that's how I do it. That's the Kylo method of engine break-in, and the engine don't give a flip, and it'll never know. It can't tell the difference. You know, as far as the way those parts move, they move. Whether you're holding it for minutes or whatever, you want the heat to generate through the engine, and then you want to let it cool off. You don't want to go full high power and let things get real hot real fast. You don't want to kill it after it's like smoking hot. You want to ease off the throttle up and down, up and down. Once it gets kind of idling for, 30 seconds, a minute, something like that, then you kill it. Let the heat dissipate nicely. That's the correct way to treat an engine on break-in. So let's go run this thing a little bit, why don't we? All right, I've got the harness adjusted, so now I'm gonna go over here on the hang station and see how easy it is to get in and out of, and become familiar with my harness away from flying around, over here hanging up. You won't be able to see me because it's dark, but I'll talk about it tomorrow when I get back on the camera. So I'm gonna go over here and do some cycles, guys. I'll catch you guys on the magic of editing. Good morning, sunshine. So I spent all night last night, I say all night, into the wee morning hours, 1, 2 a.m. How much time did I end up putting on it last night? Let's see, 0.3 hours. Yeah, and I'm not running it for a long time at this point. It's not so much about the time as it is getting the heat to cycle through the engine. The way I break in a 2-stroke motor is I will rev it up. In fact, I may just demonstrate a break-in cycle as I do it. Something I did discover, though, that I mentioned yesterday about the harness. I love the new harnesses that these are coming with. So easy to get in and out of the seat, so much more comfortable in the seat, even more comfortable than the Dudek power seat. I've not ground handled with it yet as far as hooked to a wing. I foresee the thing being very comfortable to work with on the ground. The straps are soft, there's nothing pinching. I'm really happy with what they're throwing here. They really got it going on here. I gotta give my nod to this machines. And of course, I bought 3 of them, so obviously I like the things, or I wouldn't repeat business with this company. Differences in the machines. Notice this machine just has the throttle zip tied onto the frame. But again, the innovation that I was talking about, they've got this one on like a nice little, there's no crimp in it there. The zip tie can't really pinch into it. Not that a zip tie does that a lot. The little button right there, if you look over here on the old machine, you'll see that there's not one. That this can just slide up. Of course, you can pick the whole machine up. It just moves. The little buttons on the frame pieces prevent that from moving. The fact that they've changed the harness, what that tells me is that this company is being innovative and they're listening to the customer's feedback and they're making the necessary changes. Matt was telling me even before that they started putting these bungee cords on the throttle, people would have throttle cables go through this hole and contact the propeller. So immediately the company produced a fix to prevent that. I'm gonna start doing that on all my paramotors. Just a side note, my Parajet Maverick, I did not have that modification on it. The other day I was doing some demonstrations for the students, some touch and go, some kiting. It was high wind, thermally gusty, but that's not what got me. I can handle the weather and the winds just fine. I landed on the ground and I turned around into a reverse kiting position, and I was just kiting the wing there. The motor was idling. I got to give the nod to the clutch on this one. The propeller was spinning at idle. I reached down with my right hand pretty far, like to do a kiting maneuver. I caught a gust and had to do an aggressive pull on the brake. And when I reached down really far, my guess is that the netting had became loose at some point during the flight. It was tight before I started. It was part of my pre-flight, was check the netting tension, but the cable pushed into the net and the prop contacted the cable and the net, and it produced a kink in the cable, and that Black Hawk throttle, it damaged it. The net got damaged. I fixed it with some zip ties, and I traded out for a new throttle. That was a pretty quick fix, nice easy fix there. But the fact that the cable contacted the netting told me that this particular modification would be good on any paramotor. So I'm gonna start doing this to all mine. I'm gonna bungee my throttle cable. It still can move around, but it can't really go back. Even if the netting fails, you can't really push it back into the net because the bungee stops it, the movement, the travel, but it still flexes a bit. So it's not anything that's restrictive. It's not even anything you notice in flight or ground handling, yet it's a huge safety improvement on any paramotor at all. I'm gonna continue to do that, and I'm gonna give my nod to these frames. I was a bit skeptical at first, but I like to try stuff. Even when I'm skeptical, I like to touch it, feel it, use it before I make a decision for myself. I've decided that I like this brand. I might get another one day. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, the good news with the school is that the fleet is complete. I have grown the school. I have 5 paramotors. I have, is it bad that I lost count of the wings? Over 10. I've got over 10 gliders at my disposal, so I could probably get every pilot fixed up on something to fly and have 4 to 5 pilots in the air at any time during my school. Mission accomplished. I have reached full inventory status. At this point, we will start rotating the inventory out. Student comes in, learns to fly. They're welcome to purchase the equipment they learn to fly on or not. Either way, fine with me. Yeah, we might do some improvements, upgrades, things of that nature on the various paramotors that I have in the school. Yeah, I've grown it to where I want it. So next season, I won't be so much about, putting money back into the school as it will be just doing the thing, just working, teaching people to fly, making it happen for the people. That's what's gonna be cool, man. Cranking out pilots and not worrying about having enough gear available. I'm at where I need to be. I've got enough that it can be just me on the field teaching people to fly. I'm not gonna be overstretched. Hey, all is good. Let's go do other differences. The E-prop, I'm undecided. I'm not the biggest fan of E-props, but not clearly anything that I could knock it. I'm gonna give it a try on this machine. It doesn't seem to be a whole lot of difference between the E-prop and the Helix, at least on the Atom 80. There's just enough to notice, right? It winds up faster and it has less overall thrust. It's always been my finding when comparing E-props to Helix or Petski or any of the other heavier propellers that you could put on a paramotor. The E-props don't push as hard. And when I'm squeezing the throttle, I want to push. I don't care how fast it winds up. I'm able to time my throttle input so that I get the thrust when I need it. If that means I've got to squeeze a half second earlier, I'm already looking at that. If you need power right now, you've waited too late to make the decisions. Just because the E-prop winds up faster, I don't find that as a pro or a con. The big con is that you don't get as much thrust as you can out of the engine. That's a slight con, not really huge. E-prop versus Helix, I could probably make a short video on that. I might just include it as a blurb. I might just include it as a blurb here on this one. If you're having to push throttle, you just time it. If your prop winds up a half second slower than a faster prop, like an E-prop, you just squeeze your throttle a half second earlier and you get the thrust when you require it. If you wait too late, that's on the pilot, not on the prop or the throttle or the motor. That's any flying, that's any move you make. Sadly, I experienced the same issue with the throttle sticking at a low RPM, so I did my spring modification technique on this one as well. There's a video about that somewhere back in the past, but this brings it back to idle nicely, so easy fix, good stuff. Let's go out here and do a break-in session. I'll show you how to do that. So I'm gonna try something a little different here. I'm going to, the motor, I guess I did my last cycle about 2 a.m. last night. It's probably closer to 9 or 10 right now. It's completely cooled off. I've not reprimed it. I've not done anything. I put the thing on my back and walked out into the yard. So I'm gonna try a cold start on this thing just to see how easy it is. No throttle, just a quick pull. But let's see what happens though. Yep. So yeah, I like to do about 4 or 5 of those heat cycles, preferably 5 unless I lose count. After that, I'm ready for the first flight. So I'll probably do 2 more, and then after that, I do a series of short flights. Actually, let me be thorough. I check everything after I do the warm-up break-in session. I've already gone over the nuts and bolts last night, so I did that off camera. After you run it for an hour, 20, 30 minutes, whatever, 4 to 5 heat cycles, usually after I do the ground hang check heat cycle sessions, I will go over the machine and make sure all the nuts and bolts are tight, and I'm not gonna lose anything. Nothing has deformed, nothing has cracked. I've not lost any integrity in the machine itself, or the harness for that matter. Being very methodical and giving it a thorough once over is important every time, and I recommend that you do that. But oddly enough, after we get complacent a little bit, our pre-flights tend to be only look at the very most important stuff. A minor thing like a loose nut, obviously depending on which one it is, may not be a deal breaker, right? It's not gonna It's not gonna kill you. Nick a prop, might lose something, might damage some threads, but I don't check every nut and bolt on every flight. I gotta be honest with you about that. I look at the important stuff, make sure it's not gonna fall apart. Things that really matter, you know, air box, stuff that might go through the propeller and cause big damage. That's the kind of stuff you really wanna watch for. But every roughly 10 flights, hour or two of operation, you want to give it a thorough once over. Look at everything. Make sure it's all intact and doing well. And your paramotoring will be a lot more successful in the long run. I'm going to cut this one here. I hope you enjoyed this break-in new motor session with Kylo. Much love, everybody. Kyle out.